I had been in love with Jeremy for 7 years, and everyone knew how crazy I was about him. No one expected that I would dump Jeremy and have a quick marriage with a man I'd only known for half a year. Chapter 1. At midnight, I still hadn't received a birthday message from Jeremy, my boyfriend of 7 years. But he had posted an update an hour ago, just a group photo with his guy friends. He'd told me he had an important business dinner tonight. All men. Nothing to worry about. But the ornate European-style mirror in the corner betrayed him. It reflected short skirts and high heels, belonging to women who definitely weren't just the guys. He always remembered his promises to his buddies and dinners with clients. But to me, he always said, "Elizabeth, just wait a little longer for me, okay?" He knew I wouldn't refuse him. I would always wait. My best friend Autumn glanced at me cautiously, trying to lighten the mood. "Happy birthday, Elizabeth." My phone buzzed with incoming messages, timed birthday wishes from everyone. Even the restaurant I frequent sent a midnight message. "Happy birthday, Miss Elizabeth. From Olive Tree. Here's a coupon for a free meal." The only person who didn't message me was Jeremy, the man I had loved for 7 years. Autumn saw how pale I looked and pretended everything was fine, trying to cheer me up. "Why waste your energy thinking about some trashy guy? Our girls-only party's about to begin." The champagne popped, and a group of girls gathered around, lively and noisy. Someone teased with a grin, "Elizabeth, where's your man tonight?" Autumn pinched her waist gently, signaling her to stop. "This is a girls' night. What would we want with some lame guy here?" Yeah. Someone chimed in. "They're probably off preparing their own romantic celebration. Who knows? Maybe he's working on some big surprise." One of our mutual friends came over mysteriously. "Let me tell you a little secret," she whispered. "I saw Martin picking something up at a jewelry store earlier, and he doesn't even have a girlfriend. So, who do you think he's buying jewelry for?" "Martin, Jeremy's ride-or-die friend. Together since college." The girls laughed and made a fuss. "Looks like we'll be drinking at Elizabeth's wedding soon." Autumn noticed how my frown had finally softened and let out a sigh of relief. I couldn't hide the smile tugging at the corners of my lips. The gloom had lifted, and I felt like the sky had cleared. My heart filled with anticipation and joy. The party went on until after 2 a.m. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Martin. The girls all gave me knowing looks. This was the moment. "Put it on speaker," they urged. I gave in to their pestering, smiling brightly as I turned on the speakerphone. I was ready for Martin to say, "Sis-in-law, open the door," and for Jeremy, the man I had loved for 7 years, to show up with flowers, kneeling on one knee, with all my friends witnessing our love. But that didn't happen. The background noise was loud, and I could even hear the flirtatious voices of drunk girls. "Hey, sis-in-law, Jeremy's drunk. Can you come pick him up? We're at Orchid Club." As soon as that name came up, the room fell silent. The air grew awkward. I knew that place, Orchid Club, recently in the news for a scandal involving shady deals and sleazy favors. So, he skipped my birthday to drink at that place with his buddies? Chapter 2. I turned down Autumn's offer to go with me and drove alone, heading straight to the club Martin had mentioned. The streetlights cast a dim glow ahead, making everything feel especially lonely. It was my birthday, and he was out drinking. I couldn't stop thinking about our first year together. That year, on my birthday, it went exactly like this. I had a small party with my close friends first, then planned to spend the rest of the night alone with Jeremy. He was busy back then, too. After the party, when I came downstairs, I saw him waiting outside. He said he wanted to treat me and my friends to dinner. He was a senior in college at the time. Everyone knew him as the untouchable campus heartthrob. He had arranged an entire day's schedule just to make sure everyone was taken care of. "Thank you all for celebrating Elizabeth's birthday. Having friends like you is Elizabeth's greatest fortune." He had no money back then but still managed to give me a set of branded skincare products, expensive for him at the time. Later, when he was swamped with his startup and I thought he wouldn't make it home for my birthday, he was on a business trip and likely couldn't return in time. I resigned myself to just getting through the day quietly. But at dawn the next morning, he knocked on my door, dust all over his clothes, red veins in his eyes, his handsome face tired and worn, carrying the chill of early dew. He pulled me into his arms. "Happy birthday, my love." How could he say my love with such ease and tenderness? It melted me completely. Why is something he once did so effortlessly now feel like such a luxury? Maybe it was the way I barged into the club alone, like a wife catching her cheating husband in the act. The front desk manager, clearly unnerved by my presence, quickly escorted me to the private room Martin mentioned, staying close behind me, likely afraid I'd cause a scene. I felt a bitter coldness settle in my heart. I had never doubted Jeremy before, but now I couldn't stop wondering, how many nights in the past, when he didn't come home, had he been in places like this? The manager opened the door. There was nothing scandalous to see, not even a woman in sight. He let out a breath of relief. Most of the guests had already left. A few of Jeremy's close buddies stood up to greet me. Hey, sis-in-law. Evening, sis-in-law. These were the same guys who'd built their businesses with Jeremy from the ground up, even though they were all accomplished in their own right now. In front of me, they acted like kids caught doing something wrong. We were close, almost like siblings. But now, seeing me walk in with a stone-cold face, they didn't dare make a sound. Jeremy was passed out on the couch, eyes closed, quiet and obedient, so much like how he used to be when we first met. I shot them a glare. I'll deal with you guys later. I told them to help me get Jeremy to the car. A few half-drunk, clumsy men scrambled to lift him. Just then, the door burst open. A young girl in skimpy clothes rushed in. Sorry, boss. I left my bag in here. Her bag was right behind Jeremy on the couch. That last sliver of hope in my heart vanished completely. Chapter 3. Jeremy had been helped into the passenger seat. The seat was reclined, and he was sleeping peacefully. I stood beside the car, leaning against it, staring at the dark sky. Even at night, the streets of City C were still alive with traffic, busy, never resting. Martin stood beside me, head bowed, stammering through an explanation. The place was chosen by the business partner. He also brought the girls. It was all just for show. None of us dared get involved with that kind of stuff. I swear, if Jeremy hadn't gotten drunk, the party wouldn't have ended even by 3 a.m. I just felt irritated, reaching into the pocket of Jeremy's suit jacket. I found half a pack of cigarettes. I pulled one out and held it out toward Martin. He reached to take it, but I slapped his hand away. Light it. Martin blinked at me in surprise. I frowned. No lighter? I got one. Martin fumbled through several pockets before finally pulling out a windproof lighter. His hands trembled a bit as he lit the cigarette for me. The smoke curled upward. I lit the cigarette but didn't smoke it, just let it burn slowly between my fingers. What exactly do you mean by just for show? Martin stammered again. We just drank a little. Drank? How did you drink? You guys invited girls just to toast with? How far did it go? Sitting on laps? Arms around the waist? Kissing? Maybe he realized I was really angry, because Martin stopped pretending. No, really. Nothing happened. There were girls next to us. Sure, but none of us touched them. Jeremy stayed in the corner the whole time. No girl could get near him. The cigarette had burned down to the filter. I suddenly felt calm again. I nodded, turned, and got in the driver's seat. Just as I was about to pull away, Martin bent down beside the window. Liz. I swear, my bro didn't do anything. I glanced at him, then rolled the window up and drove off without looking back. Chapter 4. It took all my strength to get Jeremy onto the sofa. I couldn't move him any farther. As he slept, there was still a faint trace of the pure, boyish face I remembered. He had grown up a lot these past years. He matured so quickly that I never got a chance to catch up. Before I knew it, he had become one of the rising stars in the business world. That girl who barged in earlier had a sweet, innocent face, with a timid, doe-eyed expression. Forget Jeremy, even I felt a protective instinct toward her. I'd heard about that club, Orchid, a notorious money pit, a playground for the powerful, a place that marked a clear line between social classes. The fact that Jeremy could even be there meant he had fully entered a different world. But I believed Jeremy hadn't done anything. The moment Martin called me sis, I believed him. If before, when Jeremy didn't come home, I only thought about breaking up with him, now, I had made up my mind. I was really going to break up with him, even if I had stormed into the club like a betrayed wife catching her cheating husband. even if all of Jeremy's friends called me sis-in-law with complete respect. Even if Jeremy had done absolutely nothing wrong, I was still going to leave him. I'm not someone with a lot of virtues, but when I decide to do something, I do it fast. No one can stop me. Just like when I first met Jeremy and started pursuing him loudly and fearlessly. Just like when he launched his startup, and I gave him my entire study abroad fund without blinking. And now, just like that, I've decided to break up with him. No hesitation. Not even God himself could stop me. Chapter 5. Every sudden decision is backed by long contemplation. I don't know when it started, but this relationship stopped bringing me joy. It gradually turned into anxiety, into constant self-doubt. I felt terrible. Still, I packed up my things overnight. The next morning, I contacted a moving company. By the time everything had been settled, Jeremy was still knocked out from his hangover. I fled to my best friend's place to catch up on sleep and ended up sleeping until dusk. The sun was setting. My best friend was still working overtime, and I was left alone in an empty apartment. That's when I realized, other than a vast loneliness, I also had a rumbling stomach. My phone buzzed again with that free meal coupon. Dinner at Olive Tree. It was supposed to be the centerpiece of the birthday I'd planned with Jeremy. Well, I wasn't going to waste my coupon, so there I was, alone in a big private dining room. I flung off my blazer, kicked off my heels in 2 different directions, and dug in with gusto. Truth be told, I really do like Olive Tree's food. But in the past, whenever I came here, it was either with Jeremy and his whole gang of brothers, or with Jeremy on some business occasion. When it was the brothers, I was the sis-in-law. I had to take care of everyone, pour drinks, order dishes. I knew each of them by name, what they liked to eat, what they were allergic to. I looked after everyone. Who wouldn't admire me? The perfect wife in training? And business dinners were even worse. There were always messy legal cases to discuss, or female assistants and companions to deal with. I had to maintain perfect table manners, read the room, sometimes even hold my own in business negotiations, and always stay on guard against women who had eyes for Jeremy. Every meal felt like going to war, but his business partners would praise me endlessly, saying how lucky Jeremy was to have such a capable woman by his side. Even those women who secretly liked Jeremy, I turned some of them into friends. A few I still keep in touch with. Capable woman behind the man. That title belongs to wives. What do you call someone who isn't married? A girlfriend. I dated Jeremy for 7 years. The first 2 years, I got treated like a girlfriend. The next 5, I acted like a wife. But to this day, I'm still just his girlfriend. Looking back now, Jeremy and I have never once had dinner here. Just the 2 of us. This relationship started with me making the first move. But it can't always be me. It's just too exhausting. Chapter 6. I ate with zero elegance. For the tough dishes, I just used my hands. Oil smeared across my mouth. I didn't care. Suddenly, the male server knocked on the door, right when I was mid-bite. He came in with a bottle of wine. We locked eyes. If he dared laugh at me, I'd end him. But the handsome waiter was a true professional. With a pleasant smile, he presented the bottle. Looked like it cost 6 figures easily. I hadn't ordered any wine. Miss Elizabeth, this bottle is a gift from our boss, he said, expressionless. I grabbed a napkin and wiped the grease off my mouth. I don't drink. His smile remained polished. This is a low-alcohol white wine. You can save it and share it later with your gentleman. The boss clearly knew who I was, but he must have misjudged. What gentleman? Just a former boyfriend. Maybe this was some kind of courtesy gesture on Jeremy's behalf? I'm single, I replied. Just got out of a relationship. Any previous connections I had, consider them void. No need to send me anything. Maybe I imagined it. But I swear the ridiculously handsome waiter's eyes lit up a bit. Was he happy to hear I was single? No problem, he said warmly. You could share it with your girlfriends. This wine is perfect for ladies. And it's a gift to you. From our boss, not tied to any past connections. Well, now I was tempted. I pictured myself coming back here with my girls, ordering whatever we wanted, eating and drinking without a care in the world. That messy cloud of emotions hovering over me, swept clean in an instant. The storm in my chest cleared to reveal blue skies. Single life really is wonderful. You show up for a random meal and get hit on by a waiter who looks like he stepped out of a magazine, and get gifted a great bottle of wine. Chapter 7. You again? Is your boss sending me something else now? I was gnawing on the tail of a giant Australian lobster, completely lacking in grace. Why did he always knock right when I was at my most unflattering? Did I not deserve even a shred of dignity? The waiter chuckled softly. This is your birthday cake. Every VIP guest receives one on their birthday. Since you came alone today, we've prepared a single-serving portion. TCH. Even the cake was reminding me I'd officially become a newly minted single. Weirdly novel. Honestly. After all, when your first love lasts 7 years, going back to single life takes some adjusting. I'd gone all day without eating. Now that I'd finished off the lobster, I was nearly full. I was going to order a little dessert afterward, but hey, guess I didn't need to. Though, this cake was kind of huge for a single serving. You got anything else going on right now? I asked him. Always at your service, Miss Elizabeth. Perfect. Celebrate my birthday with me. Then, come help me light the candles. I went to the restroom to tidy up. By the time I came back, the table had been completely cleared. The ridiculously handsome waiter was lighting candles on the cake. Honestly, the service here put hot pot restaurants to shame. They'd even prepared a birthday crown for me, made of Swarovski crystals. No less. Seriously? That fancy? The custom candle read 18 in wax. And although the cake looked a bit ugly and rushed, they hadn't known I was coming tonight, so a last-minute setup was understandable. The candle flames were like little sparklers, tiny fireworks in the dark. The lights went out, the candles were lit, and the whole thing looked breathtaking. I thought that would be the highlight. But then, the waiter started singing happy birthday. Zhu and I xing ri kuai lu. Zhu and I xing ri kuai lu. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to Miss Tian. Jeremy had never once sung me a birthday song. Chapter 8. It was an unexpectedly wonderful evening. Not only did I enjoy a luxurious meal like never before, but I even shared a slice of cake with a ridiculously handsome waiter. I packed up a bottle of red wine, planning to go home and split it with my dear best friend Autumn. She had been thrilled when I told her I broke up with Jeremy, said she was throwing me a single life party soon to celebrate my liberation from his toxic orbit. As for the white wine, the one they gifted me, I felt a bit awkward about just taking it with me. So I left it at the restaurant for next time. I figured I'd bring Autumn and enjoy it together. I held my heels in one hand, my blazer draped lazily over my arm, barefoot and relaxed, slowly walking out. I didn't know if I'd turn a corner and meet love, but I did turn a corner and ran headfirst into my freshly minted ex-boyfriend. Chapter 9. Jeremy looked at me with a hint of surprise in his eyes. It was rare to see that expression on him. His years in the business world had trained him to stay unreadable. Martin looked surprised too, though now really wasn't the time for that. Sis-in-law, why weren't you answering your phone? Jeremy's been looking for you all day. We were freaking out. I flipped my hair, my earrings chiming lightly. Looking for me? What for? I forgot to charge my phone. I'm 25. Not some kid who gets lost. Oh, right, Jeremy and I broke up, so don't call me sis-in-law anymore. I'm actually 2 years younger than you. Just keep calling me little Elizabeth. I patted his shoulder. No hard feelings. Business didn't work out, but we can still be cool, right? Martin was nearly panicking. Wait, what? Sis-in-law, are you still mad about last night? I swear to God, Jeremy didn't do anything to betray you. If I'm lying, may I stay single forever? I laughed. Seriously? That's how far you're willing to go? Martin suddenly felt a wave of unease. The calmer I acted, the more it proved I had really let go. And that was exactly what he didn't want to see. Since Jeremy started his business, the woman by his side had never changed. Back when things were tough, it was just a bunch of guys barely able to take care of themselves, so I handled everything. Meals, laundry, everything. Who hadn't been scolded by me? Who didn't respect me deep down? To Martin, me breaking up with Jeremy was like his parents getting divorced. Elizabeth, let's go home first. We need to talk, Jeremy said, his voice still hoarse from a hangover. Talking's fine, but going home? No thanks. I have plans with Autumn. I turned to leave, clutching a bottle of red wine, but Jeremy grabbed my arm. Elizabeth, come back with me. My head hurts so much. I pried his hand off. Jeremy, I don't want to go home today. I'll call you tomorrow. Let's talk then, end things properly. I don't want to end it. His face twisted with a rare flash of desperation. Was he still drunk? Let's talk tomorrow. I'm leaving. Getting into a messy argument here would be anything but rational. Don't go. Sis-in-law, can't we just talk it through? Martin tried to stop me. Panic rising, this was happening too fast. And somehow it felt even more catastrophic than the worst financial crisis he'd ever dealt with. I dodged his hand, but the wine bottle I was holding slipped from my arm and hit the ground. Red wine splashed everywhere, staining the white floor and my bare legs with a shocking splash of crimson. My foot stung, and the first thing that came to mind was, thank God I didn't pack that bottle of white wine too. 6 figures worth of liquid down the drain would have been a crime. I really was a woman of foresight. Chapter 10. Is this waiter guy assigned just to me today? Is that the kind of treatment a premium VIP gets? I felt 10 feet tall, 3 grown men fussing over my injured foot like headless chickens. Jeremy was holding my calf. Martin was supporting my back. And the young waiter pulled a white cloth napkin from his shirt pocket to wrap my wound. You're a grown woman. Why are you walking around barefoot? Jeremy frowned. I'll walk however I damn well please. What? You gonna police my feet now? We're broken up. And he still thinks he can tell me what to do. Seriously? Jeremy glared at me, exasperated. Do you have to argue with me about everything? Humph. I rolled my eyes. The cut's pretty deep. Might need stitches. You should let a doctor take a look. The waiter said. Jeremy and the waiter both reached out to carry me. Now this was a showdown. Jeremy looked shocked, clearly not understanding why this random waiter was bold enough to challenge the boyfriend role. But the waiter stood his ground. He heard it loud and clear. The guest said she was single. Maybe you two can just carry me together? Jeremy still carried that main guy aura. He reached for my waist. But I dodged and clung onto the waiter's shoulder instead. Elizabeth, stop messing around. Your foot's bleeding. Hey, don't touch me. We broke up. Respect the boundaries. Jeremy looked like he was about to laugh from sheer frustration. Elizabeth. Even criminals get a trial. You're handing down a death sentence without due process. Don't I get a chance to appeal? Well, I don't want you to carry me. Nope. Then let Martin do it. Jeremy backed off. I was about to keep arguing, but Jeremy finally snapped. Stop being difficult. Your foot is covered in blood. Doesn't it hurt? You wait too long. It gets infected. It scars. And then what? Gonna cry about it later? Fine. Jerk. Martin it is. Steady now. You've been drinking a lot. I can tell you're kind of worn out. I said, eyeing Martin's dark circles. Martin, stung by that, tried to prove he wasn't weak. He took off at a brisk pace like he was carrying a sack of feathers. See that? Sis? I'm steady as a rock. Who's worn out? I pretended not to notice him breathing like a steam engine. Chapter 11. Martin was driving. Jeremy and the waiter sat on either side of me in the back seat. Who is he? Why is he tagging along? Jeremy's eyes were practically spitting fire as he looked at the waiter. I turned to the guy. What's your name? Oliver. You didn't even know his name and you were ready to let him carry you? Jeremy looked like he was about to explode. Well, now I know. Elizabeth. What the hell are you doing? I'm not even out of the picture yet and you're already looking for someone else? I went quiet for a moment. Then I said, I'll do whatever I want. If you don't like it, go call the cops. The law only protects marriages, not relationships. Oliver was a gem, even knew how to twist the knife. Jeremy was so furious he turned his head and stared out the window in silence. Chapter 12. Luckily, I didn't need stitches, though the doctor said there'd probably be a scar. After cleaning and dressing the wound, he reminded me to change the bandages regularly and come back for a follow-up in a week. I really didn't want to go back with Jeremy. All right. Let Martin take me to Autumn's place. Everyone else, just go. Maybe I made my resistance a bit too obvious. Jeremy didn't push me. Where did you move your stuff to? I bought an apartment. Told you before. Don't worry, I'm not homeless. Jeremy lowered his eyes and gave a weak nod. Oh right. Oliver, why are you still here? Isn't your boss going to dock your pay? You forgot your birthday crown. I came to return it. Plus, you got hurt at our place. We're partially responsible. Of course I had to follow up. Martin suddenly exclaimed. Wait, it's your birthday today? Damn. I knew I was forgetting something. I even got you a gift. I just drank too much last night and blacked out. I smiled. It's fine. The day's almost over. Just save the gift for your future girlfriend. Martin's gifts were always the same: watches. Jewelry easy to repurpose later for someone else without raising eyebrows. Jeremy suddenly looked up. His face had gone pale. He said weakly, I didn't forget. I just drank too much last night. You know how business stuff is. You gotta keep the clients happy. I was actually planning to. I shook my head. It doesn't matter anymore. It's almost over anyway. That's how my birthday went. And that's how our relationship ended too. Chapter 13. I honestly wanted to give Oliver a medal. This wasn't hot pot restaurant level service. This was precision care service. Not only did they reimburse all my medical expenses, but they also covered my meals while I was recovering every day. Food was delivered right on time, so considered it was almost embarrassing. And guess who delivered the meals? Oliver. Miss Elizabeth. My boss asked me to take care of you. Looking at this glowing, runway model level guy in front of me, I couldn't help but spit out the sip of water I'd just taken. Take care of me? What does this have to do with you? You don't owe me anything. Is your boss giving you grief or what? No, nothing like that. He just said this matters under my responsibility now. From your meals to your bandage changes to carrying water jugs until you're fully healed. I'm all yours. This was awkward. Service to this degree? They're literally assigning me a personal waiter for in-home care? No, really. That's not necessary. Go back. Please. I tried to reason with him gently. Oliver blinked innocently. Boss said if I come, I get paid. If I don't, he docks my pay. So, beautiful lady, can you really stand to let a guy this good-looking lose money? This guy seriously just walked right through my front door. Just as I hit a dry spell, they sent me this dazzling hottie right to my doorstep. Are they trying to tempt me into misbehaving? So, do you still want me? How could I not? Chapter 14. Jeremy sent me a WeChat message. Is your foot feeling any better? Still hurting? I can make you some pork rib soup. For a moment, I couldn't tell if that was genuine concern or passive-aggressive sarcasm. There was something about that message that just screamed, you are what you eat. And somehow, that made it feel really bleak. I almost wanted to cry. He treats me so well, so why can't we make it work? To be honest, Jeremy really was a good partner. For 7 straight years, he never once failed to come home at night. Never once skipped a good morning kiss. He really was Mr. Perfect. Even now, I still believe I had exceptional taste to have found such a treasure like Jeremy. But that's the thing, I just couldn't see where this relationship was heading anymore. Isn't staying the same a good thing? No, it's not. Breaking up with Jeremy was like tearing a piece of flesh from my own heart. No need. I'm fine. Let's make time to sort out the property division. Jeremy's company, 40% of it was mine. I was the largest shareholder. Jeremy, despite being the so-called boss, only held 20%. If we were going to split, then it needed to be clean. No strings attached. No backup plans. Because I couldn't trust myself not to look back. Now that I had Olive Tree's professionally made pearl pork rib soup, I didn't want to cling to that old slow-simmered, homemade comfort anymore. Chapter 15. I never thought that the first time Jeremy and I would dine at Olive Tree, just the two of us, would be after the breakup. A cozy window-side booth, with a view of Sea City's sparkling skyline and the occasional cruise ship gliding through the river in the distance. I was wheeled in by Oliver. Thank you again, Olive Tree Hot Pot Restaurant, for your precision care service. Sincerely grateful. I brought all the documents. You can take them home, read through everything, sign them, and just send them back to me, Elizabeth. Jeremy cut me off. Can we not talk about this right now? I want to know why you're really breaking up with me. He glanced at Oliver. Mr. Oliver, could you give us a moment? I'm responsible for Miss Elizabeth's care. She's still recovering and can't move easily. I need to be around to prevent any secondary injuries. Elizabeth. We haven't officially broken up yet. Jeremy ignored him completely, just like the day I went to pick him up. He wore that unshakable main partner energy, laced with a not-so-subtle hint of jealousy. Oliver, go wait outside. There won't be any secondary injuries. If I need you, I'll call. Feel free to order something for yourself, whatever you want. I'll cover it. Oliver nodded obediently. No need for that. If you need me, just call. He really knew how to play the part, even with that dazzling face. When he spoke those words, he looked just like a polite, well-mannered younger brother. Of course, not the Martin kind. Jeremy, on the other hand, felt like every fiber of Oliver's being, down to the stitching on his clothes, was silently screaming homewrecker, acting innocent while clearly up to no good. Chapter 16. I don't think there's anything wrong with our relationship. Elizabeth, you're giving me the death sentence. I just want to know the crime. I looked into his earnest, burning eyes, but all I felt was a heavy block pressing on my chest. A crime? Let me think. There's no crime. I just have a few questions. Jeremy's fingers twitched. He was clearly anxious now. If I had just listed all my frustrations, he might have been able to respond, to argue his case, to try and fix things. But questions? Questions only hurt if you already know the answers and ignored them anyway. He hadn't slept at all last night. He'd spent the whole time reflecting, analyzing where things went wrong in our relationship. But he couldn't come up with anything, because in his mind, his love was solid, unwavering, and flawless. Jeremy, I just want to know, have you ever actually planned our future? Of course I have. Don't be so quick to answer. If you did, then tell me, when were we getting married? When would we have kids? When were you going to take me to meet your parents? What kind of rings would we get? What kind of wedding dress? What kind of date would we pick for the ceremony? And where would we hold it? Who would be invited to the wedding? When were you going to visit my parents and formally propose? Jeremy's face turned pale, white as a sheet. He said nothing, because he had never thought about any of it. And that final shred of hope I'd been holding on to, it vanished completely. I was about to call Oliver to come and wheel me out, but Jeremy suddenly scrambled to pull something from his suit pocket. A small, deep red velvet box. He stammered, completely flustered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Elizabeth, I was going to propose on your birthday. I gently stopped his hand from opening the box. His hand froze. I smiled and shook my head. No need to open it now, Jeremy. Before yesterday, any day over the past 7 years, even the very first day we got together, if you had made me a ring out of a rose stem and proposed, I would have said yes. But yesterday had already passed, and what's missed is missed. I didn't want a last-minute decision made in a panic. I called Oliver in to take me home. As the door closed behind me, Jeremy slumped into the chair, staring out the window, lost in thought. At some point, a single tear fell from his chin and extinguished the tiny spark between his fingers, leaving behind only a lapful of ashes and a thin trail of smoke. He pulled out the ring. He had started preparing it a year ago, but it was given at the wrong time, even if it was just a day too late. It still wouldn't make a difference. He had always believed their love could withstand anything, that if their bond was strong enough, it didn't need tending. He believed a man should be responsible, should wait until he could give her everything before building a life together. What he never considered was that Elizabeth never needed luxury or financial security. What she needed was a promise of the future. A life soaked in love, not money. There were many things Elizabeth never knew, and he never planned to tell her. Not before, not now. Back when he had nothing but dignity and pride, he still couldn't bring himself to beg for her to stay. Jeremy slid the ring onto his pinky. His fingers were long and slender. The ring fit perfectly. Only, it was meant for the ring finger of his wife. Chapter 17. The moment the door shut behind me, I couldn't hold back my tears either. 7 years together, it's not something you can just walk away from. Jeremy and I had become part of each other's daily lives. To cut things off, it felt like tearing out a piece of my soul. 7 years ago, I had just started college. I moved from the southern city up to Sea City. One Christmas, I went out with my roommates to explore, but we got separated in the middle of a massive plaza. I was completely unfamiliar with the place. My phone had died after a full day out. I couldn't even contact anyone, let alone use the GPS. I borrowed a stranger's phone but couldn't remember a single number by heart. I was completely lost. All I could do was sit on a bench and cry. That's when Jeremy appeared. He saw my student ID and came over to ask if I was from C University. Even back then, he had the instincts of a businessman. It was Christmas Eve, and tons of couples were out on dates. He was selling Roseanne apple bundles that had already sold out. He was a real businessman. Bundling like that made it seem like a deal, even if the price was outrageous. By then, he only had a few slightly wilted roses left. The apples and wrapping paper were gone. So, he bought a newspaper from a kiosk for $1. And with those long, skillful hands, he folded it into a bouquet for me. At the time, I was so mad I wanted to smash my barely new iPhone. The battery died so fast. And obviously, I couldn't punch myself. So I just wanted to throw the phone. I was wiping my tears and hesitating when suddenly, a bouquet of roses was handed to me. In that moment, he felt like a ray of light, shining only on me. Are you lost? He had such sharp instincts. Just walked over randomly and picked up a girlfriend. Turns out he was also from C University, a senior. He had just sold the last of his stock and folded up his empty little cart. So he took me back to campus on the way. I had barely stepped through the door when Autumn came bouncing in, all hyped up about running into the cold and distant campus prince on her way home. From her description, it was clearly the same senior who had just walked me back. When she saw the bouquet in my hands, she practically leapt into the air like Tigger. It's not even Valentine's Day. Has the matchmaker god decided to fast-track you? Please. The matchmaker doesn't celebrate Valentine's Day. Chapter 18. This campus prince of C University had a legendary reputation. For 4 years, he swept every major scholarship, laser-focused on his future, never once caught up in drama or relationships. Rumor had it, no matter how hard senior girls or freshman crushes tried to get close to him, he was immune, completely unmoved. Eventually, people started seeing him as unapproachable. Autumn warned me, don't lose yourself over a single bouquet. Love shouldn't be given lightly. She told me to think it over carefully. At the time, she was glued to Gu Jingming novels and kept comparing our city's nightlife to the glitzy materialism described in those books. She'd mimic Gu Li's tone and say, love without money is like sand, it scatters after just a few steps. Even without the wind. Why? Because the campus prince was poor. That was his ultimate rejection weapon, used on countless rich girls from C City. It worked like a charm. So many gave up and never looked back. Jeremy really was poor. He studied software engineering, and every bit of his free time during college was spent taking on freelance projects. He ate in the cafeteria for all 4 years. In a city like C, he was an outlier, totally immune to the flashy lifestyle. But he was honestly poor. No shame, no apology, just poor with dignity. I didn't care. I was going to chase him anyway. He had won so many awards in college. He was kind of a campus celeb. And me? I was just a clueless freshman charging forward without hesitation. I chased him hard, waiting downstairs at the guy's dorm regularly. Autumn would constantly roast me. Do you know how many people are asking about you? How many are betting you'll give up in a week? They all think you'll turn around the moment you get burned. But I didn't give up. I didn't turn back. And guess what? I actually caught the untouchable campus prince. Chapter 19. Jeremy confessed to me. I have nothing. Everything I earned went into paying off my family's debt. Even so, would you still want to be with me? I thought for a moment and asked, how much of the debt is left? And will there be any follow-up issues once it's cleared? Jeremy smiled and shook his head. It's all paid off, and there's nothing else to deal with. Then what's there to worry about? And just like that, the untouchable campus prince officially became mine. I didn't even need to spend that much effort chasing him. I knew he liked me too. The way he looked at me wasn't the way he looked at anyone else. I never doubted Jeremy's ability to make money. He used to hustle hard to pay off debts. If he had to start from scratch, he'd still make something out of nothing. And he'd take good care of me too. He started his own company in senior year before I even realized what he was up to. He and Martin, along with a few other guys, were renting a shabby office, living off cheap shredded potato takeout and instant noodles, scrambling around looking for investors. Once I found out, I invested $2 million. That was my overseas study fund. Jeremy didn't want to take it at first. Elizabeth, I can't live off a woman, especially not the woman I love. I looked at his thin, worn-out face and my heart ached. This is investment, okay? I'm not handing it over for free. You really think you can fool someone who's studying finance? I spent the whole night laying out the future potential of his software project, backed by clear logic and solid projections. Eventually, I convinced him it wasn't a handout. It was a proper equity investment. I truly believed in the direction Jeremy was heading. Based on national and internet development trends, big data was bound to blow up in the coming years. I've never been wrong before, not about Jeremy. And not about the future either. Chapter 20. Jeremy made it, and I built a career of my own. Because of the whole studying abroad issue, I did have a bit of a falling out with my parents. But at the end of the day, they were still my mom and dad. They didn't think using my fund to support my boyfriend's business was a mistake. In fact, they were even willing to continue paying for me to go overseas. But I turned it down. For the first time in my life, my mom spoke to me in a really serious tone. Elizabeth, I understand everything you've done. I believe you acted out of love. And yes, love often drives us to give everything we have. But I will never support you changing your life plans, your future, or even yourself. For a man, the most important thing in love is staying clear-headed. But I didn't feel like I'd changed at all. After graduation, I started at the bottom in my parents' company. Meanwhile, Jeremy's forward-thinking ideas had already made him a rising star in the business world. It wasn't until I returned the $2 million I'd earned from Jeremy's company dividends to my parents that our relationship began to thaw. Not because of the money, but because they finally accepted that maybe my decision back then wasn't such a disaster. Not right, exactly, but at least not totally wrong. Because in my mom's eyes, I should never have changed my life path for anyone, not even my future husband. Helping a man grow into success, to her, was no different than feeding a tiger with your own flesh. To her, I was still a kid, never mind my investing skills. She thought I just got lucky, that I made a bet and happened to win, because Jeremy turned out to be a decent man. Chapter 21. Jeremy was the perfect partner. He remembered every single anniversary. He gave me all the romantic gestures and meaningful rituals. He loved me deeply. The kind of love where I'd sometimes wake up in the middle of the night from how warm his embrace was. The kind of love where he'd spend every bit of his free time with me. His friends respected me as the sister-in-law. My girlfriends no longer questioned his feelings for me. The receptionist at his company referred to me as Mrs. Zhao, and my colleagues all called him brother-in-law. So why did all of that one day fall apart? Was it because he got drunk at a business dinner on my birthday and forgot it the next day? No. It was during another dinner party. Someone casually asked him, "Do you and your wife have kids yet?" He chuckled politely and replied, "This is my girlfriend. She's still young, no rush." And suddenly, the way people looked at me changed. In the eyes of those people, in their social tier, girlfriend and wife are two very different things. A girlfriend is someone dependent on him. A wife is someone who stands beside him. Equal, not the same. Even his business associates had assumed we were a married couple with kids. But Jeremy hadn't even realized how far behind he was. After that night, I never went to another banquet with him, because I couldn't stand hearing him introduce me to others like that again. This is my girlfriend. Do I desperately want to get married? Am I eager to become someone's wife? I'm only 25. At 25, not being married isn't strange, or rare, or something to be ashamed of. But after 7 years together, it had become something expected, something that felt like it should have already happened. It's not the fact that we didn't get married that disappointed me. It's that he never even imagined we would. He never brought up his family to me, not once. As for why, not in the past. Not now, I never asked. And now, I don't even want to know, because asking wouldn't change anything. If he truly wanted me to know, he wouldn't need me to ask in the first place. Chapter 22. You can't just forget a 7-year relationship like flipping a switch. And when something suddenly goes missing from your life, you can't just patch it up like nothing happened. Jeremy's company didn't have enough cash flow on hand to buy out my shares all at once, so they paid half at market value up front. The rest would come in annual dividends wired to my account, more than enough for me to live a carefree life forever. Everything had been cleanly severed, and I suddenly realized In all those 7 years, I never once took a vacation. I barely even went shopping. That study abroad plan I shelved back then? It completely vanished. I couldn't even remember why I'd wanted to go in the first place. Now I was stuck at home recovering, with Oliver pushing me around in a wheelchair. I didn't even have to walk. I made up my mind to forget Jeremy. I quit my job, cut off my social life, and suddenly found myself with nothing to do. No idea what came next. Autumn, worried I was spiraling after the breakup, showed up with barbecue and concern, only to find me living the life of luxury, completely unbothered, nowhere near the devastated ex she was expecting. And on top of that, I had my own personal hot young butler. The envy in her eyes was almost tangible. Elizabeth, it's the 21st century. Why are you living like some feudal princess? Keep this up and you'll forget how to go to the bathroom by yourself. Thanks for the concern. I do still run when it rains. Oliver had fully embraced the precision care hot pot service philosophy. Rumor has it he even went back to the restaurant to learn new tricks. He picked up some flashy nail art skills and practiced on my injured foot. He even tied the bandage into a pink Hello Kitty bow. Being pampered like this made giving up seem way too tempting. What was I going to do when my foot healed and Oliver had to leave? They say 21 days is all it takes to form a habit. Now I was stuck teetering between two extremes. Do I send Oliver away, or keep him around? Sending him off didn't feel fitting for my current status as a financially independent woman of means. What kind of rich woman does her own chores? But keeping him? That might interfere with finding my next great love. It was a real dilemma. Elizabeth, your foot's almost healed, right? Let's go out and have some fun. I found this super cool lounge bar, new hot guy every night doing live covers. You'll love it. I knew she wasn't doing it for fun. She just wanted to distract me. To everyone else, I probably looked like someone nursing a deep heartbreak after a breakup. But only I knew. I was slowly making peace with it all. When Jeremy pulled out that ring, I knew for sure these 7 years weren't a waste. The story had a graceful ending, and that was enough for me. I just hadn't adjusted yet to a life without Jeremy. But time heals everything. I wasn't going to live in the past forever. Those 7 years with Jeremy? I didn't regret a second. In fact, I was lucky. The memories were still beautiful. But life moves forward, and I still have many more 7-year chapters to write. Miss, you're still recovering. No alcohol. Oliver was busy gluing rhinestones onto my toes. Autumn narrowed her eyes. Hey, pretty boy, why do you act like Elizabeth's butler or something? Maybe it's just a girl thing, a weird sixth sense. There's always a little territorial tension when it comes to the men around your best friend. Oliver smiled gently. If she'll have me, I'd be honored. Okay, what the hell was that? Why did that sound so suggestive? Could he be after my money? I mean, how many hot guys can truly resist the temptation of a young, single rich woman? Chapter 23. One trip to that lounge bar turned out to be unexpectedly enlightening. Turns out, Oliver isn't after my money. This rich kid was just slumming it for fun, playing a full-on cosplay of loyal servant. Everything was going just fine until someone suddenly walked up and greeted him. Boss Oliver, you came and didn't even let us know? How can we let you spend money at your own brother's place? Click. Lightning fast connection. Olive Tree and Oliver. Now the name made sense. So that's why it felt like more than just a coincidence. Oliver, who was usually so smooth and charming in social situations, completely froze. That beautiful face of his was twitching into an awkward smile, like a guilty kid caught red-handed. While exchanging pleasantries, he kept sneaking glances at me. His looks were so obvious. The guy talking to him finally noticed me too. Oh, dining out with your girlfriend. Huh? I won't bother you too. Mr. Oliver has good taste. Eat, drink, enjoy. This meal's on me. Let's all catch up properly next time. When they finally walked off, I looked over at him and said casually, Mr. Oliver. Huh? Must have been tough for someone of your status to humble yourself and serve me these past few days. Oliver looked like he was about to cry. That whole butler image? Gone. I was honestly curious. Why the face? I'm not that scary. Come on. Sit. I really want to know. What was this? Some kind of secret identity mission to experience the real world? I swear I wasn't trying to be sarcastic, but judging from Oliver's reaction, that's definitely how it landed. He was probably younger than me, only a few years out of school, and clearly not used to teasing. His face turned red all the way to the tips of his ears. I just wanted to chase you. Pretty big sis. I like you. A direct confession. Sometimes being straightforward works better than dancing around the edges. It's the most honest, most obvious way to show interest. I hated those ambiguous games. You like someone? Say it. Like them so much you're willing to risk it all? Even better. For younger girls, maybe that kind of subtle flirtation works. But me? I figured life out a long time ago, like when I was helping my aunt gut fish in the supermarket. My heart's been as cold and sharp as her cleaver ever since. So when Oliver confessed to me, I felt absolutely nothing. In fact, I kind of wanted to laugh. Chapter 24. Sorry, I really did laugh. I couldn't help it. Autumn's gaze darted between the two of us. Then she let out a cold snort. Wow, Elizabeth. And here I was thinking you were heartbroken and needed cheering up. But turns out you've already reeled in a hot little cub. I rolled my eyes. What are you talking about? Do I seem like that kind of woman to you? How would I know if you are or not? Elizabeth, you've changed. You're not the woman I used to know. You've devolved from badass CEO to spoiled rich housewife. Autumn, I'm rich, and I worked for it. There was a time when women needed to build empires with their bare hands, but now? I could eat myself into the grave and still not go broke. I stared her down, cool as ice. People change. That's just how it is. Oliver, bless his heart, didn't stand a chance in the face of our back and forth. But he was persistent, still chasing me. I honestly thought he'd give up after that night. But nope, he came back even more prepared. Dearest Miss Elizabeth, may I offer you the services of a personal butler? Home delivery. Fair pricing. No scams. You've already completed your free trial. So, are you satisfied? I gave him a polite but icy smile. Satisfied, but not interested. With little flings like this, it's best to be quick and clean, cut the threads before they tangle. I was about to close the door, when one long hand reached out and gripped the doorframe. I brought creamy fish fillets and pearl pork rib soup. Come in. No hidden meaning. I was just hungry. Chapter 25. I turned Oliver down, but it was like he didn't even register the rejection. Every single day, he came over with delicious food, did the laundry, cooked, cleaned, meticulous and thoughtful. Even Cinderella couldn't compete with this level of domestic devotion. To win a woman's heart, you have to win her stomach first, Oliver said. Can't lie, he did get the point. But seriously, how is he this good at cooking? Sis, Olive Tree is actually my family's private kitchen. Recipes passed down from father to son, strictly no outside franchises. He said this while wearing an apron, his broad shoulders and narrow waist on full display, those long legs propping him up like a model. For a second, I thought, maybe my kitchen was too small for this man. All your favorite dishes? They're my specialties. You sure you don't want to just take me home? Excuse me, he's already in my home. Sure, the food was delicious. But that didn't stop me from giving him a cold brush off. You keep making the same few dishes, no matter how much I love them. They'll get boring eventually. That's okay. I'll just keep learning new ones. Okay. I admit it, I started to waver a little. Who could resist a gorgeous, talented younger man who looks like that and cooks like a dream? At first, I thought I couldn't. But now? Turns out I totally could. Like I told Autumn, people change. And as long as you're not changing for someone else, you can transform as many times as you want. Even 72 times. Chapter 26. When Autumn found out Oliver and I were together, her face didn't even twitch. Just hit me with cold sarcasm. I knew this was how it would end. Ugh, women. She was just jealous I had a boyfriend and she didn't. Autumn always bragged about having 18 boyfriends. Still haven't seen one of them in person. Being with Oliver wasn't some impulsive rebound. He's 23, just finished grad school, and already facing serious pressure from his family to get married. Turns out, he's got a childhood friend, basically the golden child match in his family's eyes. His relatives had everything planned, the perfect couple, ready to get engaged this year. But Oliver was firmly against it. No way am I marrying her. She doesn't even like me. I don't get it. What century are we in that people are still trying to arrange marriages? Apparently, his so-called childhood sweetheart used him as a scapegoat, got pregnant by her boyfriend and didn't want her family to find out, so she begged Oliver to accompany her to the abortion clinic. Unfortunately, the doctor was a family acquaintance, and word got back to Oliver's grandfather. Boom! At age 23, Oliver was suddenly on the chopping block, forced into a marriage he didn't want. I took a sip of the pork rib soup he made, rich but not greasy. I could drink this every day and never get tired of it. So, what, you're looking to get married now? Oliver looked up at me. Not at all. When I'm with other people, I can't see any kind of future. Just the thought of spending decades with them makes everything feel blank. But with you, it's different. I get excited cooking for you every day. I've even imagined us honeymooning in France, feeding pigeons in a plaza, and if you're willing, maybe we could have a little girl someday. You'd pick the full name. I'd call her Candy. Ugh. Who said anything about having your baby? I bit into a rib, but I might consider dating you. Oliver literally jumped up. He looked just like Tigger, honestly. I was starting to wonder if all the people around me were secretly cartoon characters come to life. Chapter 27. Oliver's efficiency was insanely high. Less than 2 weeks into dating, I was already meeting his family at the Olive Tree Cafe. I had expected his family to be matchmaking him with his childhood sweetheart, basically trying to keep it in the family, so I figured they wouldn't be too fond of me. Not at all. I suspected he had summoned every aunt and great-aunt he could find. He stood next to me, skillfully introducing me to his many relatives. He was effortlessly exchanging witty comebacks with them like it was second nature. Auntie Lynn, if you've got questions, just ask me. It's Elizabeth's first time meeting you guys. No need to be so fierce. Go away. Who wants to talk to you? Annoying brat. Do I look like a matchmaker asking all these questions? Exactly. Oliver, move aside. We just want to chat with Elizabeth. Get to know her a little. Is that a crime? I kind of agreed. It's not like I have social anxiety. What's a few aunts and great aunts? I've managed to turn love rivals into allies. These aunties were child's play. I did feel like things were moving a bit fast, so I figured I might as well get some inside info on Oliver from these aunties, including the time the handsome golden boy got bitten on the butt by a goose as a kid and ended up with a nasty bruise on his pale, tender little behind, while they were dishing out his childhood dirt. I glanced over at Oliver, who had just walked up, and let my gaze drift down to a certain area. Oliver quickly covered my eyes with his hand. What do you think you're looking at? I'm checking if there's still a goose bite bruise on your perfectly peachy butt. Oliver's face darkened as he abruptly shut down the auntie's tea party. Then he dragged me to a quiet corner and kissed me deeply. Want to know something? I'll tell you myself, sweetheart. The tension was definitely getting steamy, and I was genuinely curious. Your third aunt said you once tore your pants playing basketball and didn't even notice. Is that true? Chapter 28. Oliver's grandfather was a kind old man, full of energy, and also working hard to boost his grandson's image. You have no idea. Young lady, this kid had his eye on you from the start. Last time I asked him when he was planning to settle down, he told me none of the girls I introduced were wife material. I asked him what kind of goddess he wanted to marry, and he pointed at you. You came with your brother last time to talk business, right? I thought to myself, if he could actually marry you, that'd be his greatest fortune. Everything Oliver did had been premeditated. When his family tried to force a marriage, he came clean to his grandpa about the whole childhood sweetheart situation. But that wasn't a valid excuse to refuse an old friend's matchmaking. Family matters, after all, not something you could interfere in, or even mention outright. So the only way out was for Oliver to find a girlfriend ASAP and use that as an excuse to reject the offer. But Oliver was ridiculously stubborn. You can't force feelings. Where am I supposed to find someone just like that? I introduced you to so many great girls and you didn't like a single one. What do you want? A literal goddess? His grandpa snapped. His older brother was already married. Meanwhile, Oliver had been goofing off for years and hadn't even had a shadow of a girlfriend. The only girl who was close to him was the childhood friend, and everyone assumed he liked her, until this whole mess came to light. Then Oliver pointed to the VIP booth by the window, where a girl sat, radiant as freshly fallen snow, poised, graceful, The kind of presence that caught your eye and stayed with you. That's the woman I want to marry. Too bad she's taken. Oliver's grandfather nearly picked up his cane to whack him for saying that. Only after Oliver repeatedly promised that he would never interfere with someone else's relationship did the old man calm down. You just stay single then. That guy she's with didn't look like any ordinary dude either. If you even think about becoming some home-wrecking simp, I'll break your damn legs. But fate had other plans. Oliver had pretended to be a customer service rep just to give her a little birthday gift. No contact. Just admiration from afar. Love born of respect. Kept within the boundaries of propriety. Who could have guessed she'd come eat alone that day? Watching her kick off her shoes and dig into her food like a regular human being, Oliver realized even goddesses enjoy earthly pleasures. And then he heard the best news of all: she was single again. That was all the excuse he needed. His feelings surged like a rising tide. Unstoppable. Chapter 29. As the wedding date approached, Oliver's childhood sweetheart came to see me. She said she was pregnant with Oliver's child. I was so stupid. Really? She said. I thought I could just let go, but I didn't expect. I'm carrying his baby. It honestly felt like she was trying to mess with me. I'd been with Oliver for over 6 months now, and she wasn't even showing. Either Oliver, who's been making me breakfast every morning, is actually a ghost, or the kid in her belly's got some serious developmental issues. Before I even said a word, Oliver showed up. No idea what he said to her, but she looked terrified and bolted out of there like her life depended on it. Oliver's disgust was written all over his face. I hadn't even reacted yet, but he looked like he was about to throw up. He collapsed into my arms, venting his misery. Babe, if it weren't for you, I'd have developed a phobia of marriage by now. You don't know how terrifying she is. Back in high school, she got caught dating some guy and pinned it all on me. It's been years and she's still pulling this crap. I reached up and patted the tousled head of this radiant pretty boy like I was petting a golden retriever, channeling maximum perfunctory energy. Oh really? Poor thing. You've had such a hard time. Chapter 30. I didn't send an invitation to Jeremy for the wedding, but Martin showed up. You're getting married. How could your loyal little bro not be here? He said, handing me a bouquet of white roses. Only your husband gets to give you red ones. I'm not the romantic type, so I picked white. Hope that's okay. Congrats on your wedding, big sis. We'll always be friends. I held the bouquet and smiled, nodding. That bunch of white roses became my bridal toss bouquet. At the ceremony, I threw it into the crowd of bridesmaids. Autumn practically dove for it. So did my former love rival, now a friend, and the rest of the fierce, infamous girl boss gang. Those powerful, no-nonsense women totally forgot their image fighting over that bouquet. Goodbye. 7 years. Ahead of me are countless more sevens, and Oliver will walk beside me, hand in hand, through them all. Chapter 31. Oliver had actually planned out every single year we'd spend together. Autumn was both impressed and appalled. How does getting married make someone younger? Look at you now, you're all bubbly like Winnie the Pooh. Back then, you barely had time to hang out with me. Now your man's hogging all your free time. Elizabeth, do you even care about me anymore? I said. Jealous much? Go get married yourself then. She rolled her eyes. Pfft. You think I can't? I've got 18 hot guys on standby. I could rotate one per day for 2 weeks straight. You think I'm the type to hang myself on one tree? Sure. Those 18 mystery pretty boys are just dying to meet you. Why don't you go play with them already? Elizabeth, you really don't love me anymore. Martin's side story. I started shipping Jeremy and Elizabeth back in college. You know what it feels like when a ship you've been sailing for 7 damn years, a ship you were convinced would last even beyond your own death, just sinks? As the president of the shipper club, I was devastated. When they broke up, I was the one who cried the hardest. Heartbroken, torn up inside. I just couldn't understand it. Why the hell didn't you two just get married earlier? I sobbed into my drink. None of this would have happened. You two were perfect for each other. Two people clearly in love, yet somehow ending up apart. God, I hated how tight-lipped I'd been. A year ago, Bro asked me to help him plan his proposal and wedding. They were finally going to make it official, and no one was happier than I was. I guarded that secret with my life. I swore to keep quiet, to make it a real surprise. And then later, Again and again. I regretted it. Why couldn't I just be a loudmouth for once? Maybe, just maybe, if I'd let something slip, things would have turned out differently. But you can't say that out loud. If you spill the beans, it's not a proposal anymore. It's not a surprise. All that slow, careful planning, and in the end, this is how it turned out. I watched their entire journey. From college nobodies to titans of industry. My big sis, she really is amazing. She would have made the perfect wife. Back when Jeremy was just starting his business, we were so broke that when we went out to eat, we could only afford one meat dish. The rest was all bland veggie stuff. Elizabeth didn't know at first, but when she found out, she made sure to take us out for a nice meal every 1st and 15th of the month. She was the first real rich girl I ever met. Too bad she ended up with Jeremy. I was young back then. I thought this was love. The only other person I ever admired like that was Tony Leung's wife. When he was down and out, they went to eat at a restaurant and she prepaid the bill behind his back, telling the staff to lie and say it had been discounted. Where do you even find a wife like that? And Jeremy of all people, was lucky enough to meet her. Jeremy's got this calm, steady vibe, even during the worst of our business crises. When it felt like we were one step away from shutting down, he'd still look like nothing could touch him. Then he'd pull us back from the brink and keep going. With him around, we never doubted the future. We caught the big wave of the internet boom, made our mark, and earned our place in the world. But the first time I saw Jeremy truly bitter was after they broke up. That was the first time I ever saw defeat in his eyes. He didn't even get drunk. He just sat there, slouched over, crushed. On a breezy evening like that, my personal symbol of what love should be fell apart. But I still believe in love, because Jeremy loves her. There was a time we helped Jeremy deal with a huge problem, his father, his biological father. To be specific, without that man, Jeremy might have become the kind of serene, intellectual legend who lived for solving unsolvable mysteries, not someone constantly weighed down by life's practical burdens. During college, Jeremy worked nonstop, not just to build a business, but because, for a long time, he was paying off a loan shark debt, a gift from his father. That was a part of his life Elizabeth never knew about, and it was also the darkest, hardest time Jeremy ever lived through. He was the kind of person who should have been born with the world at his feet, a golden boy by all definitions. But instead, he wore jeans so faded they were nearly white, and worked every kind of job, never turning his nose up at the smallest paycheck. Aside from taking on construction contracts, he never passed up a single chance to make money. On holidays, he'd sell flowers on the street, then use the cash to repay loans. The consequences of not paying were brutal. Debt collectors would harass his classmates, his professors, anyone they could reach. And since it was high-interest private lending, the law wouldn't protect him. There was nothing he could do. While paying back the debt, he also had to prevent new loans from piling up, which meant he had to feed his father's endless spending. But karma, in the end, still exists. The first year Jeremy was with Elizabeth, his father was sentenced to prison for fraud. By their 5th year together, his father was released. By then, our business had picked up, and Jeremy wasn't the same man he used to be. But the old man had no intention of letting go. He wanted to cling to Jeremy for life. Impossible. When he couldn't squeeze money from Jeremy, he turned to us. And of course we gave him what he wanted, because he threatened to drag us all down with him. Between fathers and sons, the law often turns a blind eye to financial abuse. But we weren't family. There were no strings tying us to him. His appetite only grew. At first, the handouts were enough. But soon even that wasn't satisfying. Then he tried to go after my sister. What he didn't know was, the amount of money he tried to extort from her crossed the threshold for felony-level blackmail. He was already well within the bounds of the law's maximum sentence. That mess was finally put to rest. Jeremy began preparing the proposal, and our business entered a new phase of growth. That night's dinner meeting, it really was unavoidable. We'd all thought it would end after the meal, but the other party dragged it out. In business, the worst thing you can do is leave a deal feeling unfinished. So even if you hate it, you stick around. There's no moral to it. It's just that some people can weather hardship with you, but not share the good times. That's life. Jeremy's world had always been full of uncertainty, and if there was one twist, there could be another. So many things in his life had no definite answer, just like no one can predict if another toxic family member will show up to wreck his peace. Sometimes I wonder, if he'd told her everything, my sister would have stood by him through it all, facing everything together. That could have been another kind of ending. Jeremy looked down at the ring in his hand, tears streaming down like beads on a string. You think I didn't want to marry her? The very first day we got together, I already wanted to marry her. There are just too many variables. Martin, I can't give her the kind of stable life and future she deserves. The white roses at the wedding, they were from Jeremy. He couldn't be there himself, so I brought them in his place. My sister's no fool. She must have guessed. So the white roses became the bouquet. The white roses stood in for him, and love was passed into someone else's hands. Autumn's side story. How do I put this? I saw the breakup between Elizabeth and Jeremy coming from a mile away. Back when she first got with Jeremy, she was the textbook definition of someone blinded by love. But later, when Jeremy started making it big, I had to admit, she'd invested in a hell of a growth stock. The guy was dirt poor in the beginning. He was literally earning cash by hauling luggage at the start of the semester. Elizabeth, on the other hand, was raised in a bubble, sweet, naive, totally unprepared for the real world. Now, I might be bad at a lot of things, but when it comes to judging people, I never miss. The first time I saw Oliver, I knew he had a thing for Elizabeth. And honestly, I wasn't surprised someone would fall for her at first sight. That's just routine. Back in college, she was swarmed by suitors. She was so used to it. Rejection became second nature, clean, sharp, no strings. Someone like her was never short on admirers. She just got swept up in Jeremy's vibe. I mean, come on, her parents' company was full of young highflyers with resumes that sparkled, and she didn't even bat an eye. Seriously, what is it about Jeremy that made him so irresistible? That man is a walking disaster wrapped in charm, a literal homewrecker in human form. But now, she's finally been saved. Oliver is the ideal husband material, and she finally got out. Elizabeth is the kind of woman who should be spoiled rotten, wrapped up in honey and pampered like royalty. Why the hell should she be suffering through some hardship love story with Jeremy? Anyway, enough about that. Elizabeth's already pregnant now, acting more delicate by the day. Oliver cooks her pregnancy meals at home every single day. So this is the joy of dating a soft, doting puppy boy type. Huh? Maybe I should go get one too. Story 2. When Lucas and I got married, we didn't even have a wedding. We just registered for a marriage certificate. But now that his first love has returned from abroad, he's planning an extravagant, grand wedding of the century. My heart turned cold that very night. I slammed the divorce papers onto the table, packed my bags, and left. The next day, as soon as I stepped off the plane, I saw over a dozen missed calls and a flood of messages from Lucas. Lucas, here's a joke for you, someone's getting married tomorrow. But the bride ran away. Lucas, yeah, that's me. I'm losing it. Where the hell are you? Chapter 01. I've been married to Lucas for 5 years. But if you counted the times we've actually met, you could tally them on your fingers. 3 times a year, 2 weeks at a time. And out of those 2 weeks, 10 days were spent in bed. He's the typical domineering CEO you see in dramas, filthy rich, controlling empires worth billions, handling million-dollar deals from morning till night. I have no idea how he even found time to sculpt his body into the shape of a Greek god. He looks incredible in a suit, with sharp, chiseled features that make him irresistible. When he puts on his gold-rimmed glasses, he transforms into a refined and untouchable man. Who would have thought that someone so composed and restrained could turn into a wild beast in private? Maybe being confined to his polished persona for so long left him no choice but to unleash his true self in private moments. This was our second reunion of the year, after barely surviving until his next overseas trip. I was trembling as I helped him pack his luggage. Lucas sat lazily on the sofa, not even bothering to look up as he asked, "Are you hoping I'll leave soon?" "That's right. I mean, no. I'll miss you," I blurted out without thinking, quickly swallowing my careless words. I tried to soften my tone. We spend so little time together. I just want to do something nice for you. Lucas leaned forward, his shadow looming over me. There are plenty of things you can do for me, and packing luggage isn't one of them. Seeing the flicker of desire in his eyes, I almost collapsed right then and there. Ding dong. The doorbell saved me, whoever it was. I made a mental note to light incense and worship them later. It turned out to be Sandra, Lucas's mother. She exuded elegance, her jewelry sparkling even in daylight. One look at her, and it was obvious she was a well-maintained, wealthy lady with refined tastes. Her sharp features bore a striking resemblance to Lucas's. Even if she hadn't arrived just in time to save me, I still would have treated her like royalty. After all, she's the mother of my golden ticket, of course. She deserves to be worshipped. Chapter 02. Strictly speaking, my marriage with him wasn't healthy. We met and got married within 24 hours. At that time, I was down and out, homeless, like a dying puppy. Lucas crouched in front of me and said calmly, "Marry me, you'll have food, a place to stay, and money to spend. I'm rarely home." He knew exactly how to propose to a stranger. We registered our marriage in the afternoon. I moved into a garden villa in the city center that night, and the next day, my husband left for a 6-month business trip, leaving me with an unlimited black card. At first, it felt like a dream. It took me a long time to get used to this luxurious lifestyle. And well, when he returned from his trips, I naturally fulfilled my duties as a wife, even though I always ended up sore and weak, thinking about everything I enjoyed. I gritted my teeth and endured it. So, Lucas and I were more like a sugar daddy and a kept woman. Only Sandra didn't know the truth. She believed that if her son willingly married an ordinary woman, it had to be true love, and whatever her son liked, she was more than satisfied with it. When Lucas was away, Sandra frequently visited. Sometimes she brought expensive supplements. Other times she checked whether our relationship was stable, as if I could ever leave Lucas. Whenever she saw Lucas and me being affectionate, her usually composed face lit up with smiles. Clearing her throat lightly, she said, "This isn't the best time for me to visit, is it? Should I leave?" "No." I rushed over and hugged her, tears nearly falling. "Mom, Lucas and I missed you so much. The driver's downstairs. Call me if you need anything." Lucas gave me a meaningful look, nodded at Sandra, and left. I was saved. I breathed a sigh of relief, but exhaustion washed over me again, and I leaned against Sandra's embrace. Sandra, with her experienced eye, noticed my state and smiled knowingly. "It seems Lucas's time at the gym hasn't gone to waste. Your married life seems pretty harmonious." Who wouldn't feel awkward discussing this topic with their mother-in-law? Blushing furiously, I stammered and didn't respond. Sandra helped me sit down and then touched my stomach. A second later, her smile grew even wider. "Oh my, this belly looks a bit rounder. Let's schedule an ultrasound at the hospital." No, Mom. I'm not pregnant. I just gained a little weight." Sandra's face fell slightly. "I'm not one of those mothers-in-law who pressure for grandchildren. I'm very open-minded. But you two always pass your health checkups after 5 years of marriage. It's about time for some news. Zoe, if you had a child, you wouldn't leave Lucas, and I'd feel more at ease. Isn't it usually the weaker party who uses children to hold on to their partner? Please, doesn't she realize how desirable her son is? And yet, she's afraid I'd leave him? The logic of this mother and son always makes me feel like I'm some prized treasure. But I know very well that I'm not. Whether it's my family or myself, everything about me is broken, even though I once had wings and the chance to soar. Chapter 03. 1 week after Lucas went on his business trip, my long-estranged sister Nicole sent me a message. "Zoe, have you seen today's headlines?" She forwarded a string of news articles, all trending topics about Lucas's latest scandal. Hashtag famous actress spotted on same flight as CEO. Hashtag CEO and actress staying at the same hotel. Hashtag 10 hours of silence. Is this their official announcement? Hashtag. I glanced at the headlines and replied with a simple, "Oh." Nicole wasn't satisfied. She bombarded me with voice messages, but I didn't open a single one. It wasn't until my mother called that I forced myself to pick up after a long mental battle. Zoe, how can you be so cold and heartless? Your sister is stuck in a wheelchair, and she still worries about you. Don't you have any gratitude? She was supposed to marry into wealth, and yet you're the one living the good life without ever showing appreciation. You're nothing but an ungrateful wretch. Her cruel words pulled me back into a whirlpool of pain. Nicole and I are 3 years apart, but my mother has always favored her, firmly believing in raising the elder like a princess and the younger like a peasant. Nicole had designer clothes and attended countless specialized classes. I only got her hand-me-downs. Thankfully, my dad cared for me. When he saw me staring longingly at ballet shoes, he fought with my mom and insisted on enrolling me in dance classes. From then on, ballet became the one thing I excelled at, something I was better at than Nicole. Though Nicole begged to join too, she lacked talent. And for once, I felt secretly proud. I thought, if I became good enough, maybe I could earn the same love Nicole had. But everything ended abruptly when I was 12. On the day of a competition, it rained heavily. A truck overturned and crushed our car on the way to the event. My dad, who was driving, died instantly. Nicole lost her legs, and I lost the only person who truly loved me. Mom's favoritism turned to outright hatred. But it wasn't my fault. Nicole had begged Dad to avoid the highway and stop to buy her a new dress. That's why he changed routes, leading to the accident. Mom refused to believe it, or even listen. She stormed onto the stage, yanked me down, and screamed through her tears, "What right do you have to dance? Your father died because of you. Your sister lost her legs because of you. How dare you stand in the spotlight?" Chaos erupted. For the first time, I defied her. Ignoring everyone, I danced to the end, because Dad had promised he'd watch me perform and see his beloved daughter shine. But when I looked into the audience, he was no longer there to clap with teary eyes. Nicole couldn't dance anymore, and Mom stopped my lessons too, ignoring pleas from my teacher. "Zoe doesn't deserve to dance. Leave. Stay away from this cursed girl, or you'll be next." Darkness consumed my teenage years. Only when I got into college and moved far away did I finally breathe again. I secretly practiced ballet in the campus studio, hoping Dad could see me. I never abandoned my training. "Dad, if there's another competition, you'll watch, won't you?" I spent 4 years in college, working tirelessly, and finally stood under the spotlight again after graduation. But Mom came, with Nicole in her wheelchair. Everything fell apart. They watched me stumble and fall, laughing wildly and shamelessly. I fled from the competition, devastated, and collapsed in the streets. That was the day I met Lucas, and that was how I became the untouchable wife of a wealthy CEO, the one person they could no longer hurt. But it only fueled Nicole's jealousy and hatred. Now, seeing Lucas caught in scandals, she must be thrilled. She probably thinks my marriage is over. I bet she's celebrating. Chapter 04. Honestly, I was surprisingly calm. After climbing up the social ladder by marrying Lucas for 5 years, every extra second of this comfortable and free life felt like a blessing. I was always prepared for the possibility of divorce. The rumors kept brewing for days. The company didn't clarify anything. Instead, they announced that the new product would be endorsed by the very same actress involved in the scandal. While calculating how much Lucas might give me as a breakup settlement, he came back, and there I was, devouring a pork knuckle while streaming his scandal on the big screen, thoroughly enjoying myself. "Your husband's caught in a scandal, and you seem quite happy about it?" Lucas leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, his tone carrying a hint of displeasure. I froze in embarrassment, wiping my greasy hands and mouth. I forced a nervous smile. "I'm actually devastated. Can't you tell? But whether you want me to take care of her during her maternity leave or step aside immediately, I'm fine with either. I'm not ungrateful. After living such a good life for so long, the least I could do was stay understanding and cooperative." Lucas's eyes flickered with an unreadable expression. Then, he tossed aside his suit jacket and loosened his tie with his slender fingers. He strode toward me, when he pulled me into his arms and started kissing my neck, leaving me slightly ticklish. I was momentarily stunned. Such energy. Didn't the other woman wear him out? Lucas's husky voice interrupted my thoughts. She's the company's prearranged spokesperson for the new product. The scandal was just marketing hype. I've never even met her alone. I was about to ask if this was his explanation, but before I could speak, his lips silenced me, leaving no room for words, only gasps. Looks like my days as Mrs. Lucas are far from over. As I was tossed onto the bed, that was the only thought running through my head. Lucas, however, was unusually talkative tonight. He whispered in my ear, "Zoe, let's have a baby." Chapter 05. I wasn't completely obedient to Lucas, at least when it came to having kids. I played along while secretly defying him. Every time he got up to shower, I'd sneak a pill into my mouth. Amen. It's not that I don't want kids, it's that I know my limits. I've always been prepared for the day Lucas might kick me out. If that day comes, I want to leave cleanly, without any ties. But if I had a child, I couldn't bear for them to grow up in a broken home or risk a stepmother mistreating them. After all, I'd once secretly seen a photo of Lucas's first love. It was tucked away in the corner of his bookshelf. A tall, strikingly confident heiress with bold, captivating features. Her name is Rita. She grew up with Lucas, but she chose to pursue art and left the country to study abroad just a week before Lucas and I met. I know she'll come back. No woman could leave a man like Lucas forever. When that day comes, I'll be cast aside, and she and Lucas will be the perfect match. A proud woman like her wouldn't willingly raise another woman's child. I have to protect my future children. The sound of the shower stopped abruptly, and I quickly hid the magazine, closed the drawer, and covered the pill box before sliding under the covers. Blushing, I called out softly, "Honey, you're so fast." "Oh, are you saying you weren't satisfied just now?" Seeing Lucas's expression darken dangerously, I wanted to slap myself. After nearly an hour of intense activity, I was utterly exhausted. If this is what he calls quick, then, no. I meant the shower. You're done. So now it's my turn. I practically crawled into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and hoped the water would drown out the awkwardness. But Lucas followed me in. I was so done. Yet, Lucas didn't look insatiable this time. He looked furious. He reached out and turned off the water, towering over my trembling form. He stared down at me. "Zoe, do you really not want to have my child?" In his hand was the pill box I'd hidden. If I said it's vitamins, would you believe me? I feigned shock and spat out the lie without hesitation. Unfortunately, Lucas wasn't an idiot. He stared at me for a long moment, then tossed the pill box aside and walked out. Chapter 06. Lucas had been staying in the country recently, yet he rarely came home. I knew we were in the middle of a Cold War. Given that I was living off my benefactor, the least I could do was not make him angry. I debated whether I should apologize first. But Lucas came home that afternoon. Behind him, a bodyguard carried a large designer gift box. He placed it in front of me and opened it. Inside was a white ballet-style evening gown. For a moment, I wanted to bolt out the door. I had overlooked one thing: Lucas, as a powerful CEO, could easily hire a private investigator to dig up my entire past. Was this his way of punishing me, forcing me to remember those dark and hopeless days? Lucas's expression remained as calm as ever. "There's a cocktail party for the product launch. To clear up the rumors about me and the spokesperson, I need my wife to attend with me." I snapped back to reality. Subtle revenge wasn't Lucas's style. In the business world, he was known for being decisive and ruthless. And when we first met, he didn't need an investigation to see how down and out I was, yet he still chose me. Didn't he? Seeing my hesitation, Lucas's sharp brows furrowed slightly. "I think this dress suits you well. If you don't like it, I'll have someone bring other options." I immediately hugged the dress and flashed a flattering smile. "I love it. You have great taste. Honey, try it on." I also had shoes picked out to match. After sending the bodyguard away, Lucas fixed his gaze on me as I changed. Even though we'd been married for years, I still blushed under his stare. The moment I touched the gown, memories surfaced. Wearing a ballet dress and standing under the spotlight had always made me feel like a swan. Attending high-end events was part of my duty as the CEO's wife. I couldn't afford to look out of place. This dress, with its ballet-inspired design, gave me an air of poise and confidence. His taste was impeccable. The gown had a white base with silver sequins. The deep V-neck was elegant without being vulgar, and the layered tulle skirt added texture and sophistication. Paired with sparkling, strappy heels, I felt elegant and radiant for the first time in a while. Straightening my back, I lifted my chin. Standing in front of the mirror, I instinctively posed like a ballerina. Lucas's eyes burned as he watched. His voice turned husky. It suits you perfectly. You really do have great taste. Honey, I complimented him. The Cold War turned into a heated battle in bed. If it weren't for the party looming, I doubted he would have let me go so easily. Chapter 07. At the gala, I arrived arm in arm with Lucas, who was dressed in a sleek tailcoat. Naturally, we became the center of attention. Is that the CEO's wife? She looks so plain. Must be from an ordinary family, right? She's just mildly attractive. To climb into a real wealthy family, she must have used some tricks. The CEO and Rita are a much better match. I heard Rita is coming back soon. This marriage might be over. The malicious stares and whispers around me made me uncomfortable. Lucas silently took my hand, gently rubbing my wedding ring. That small gesture had a calming effect. Like magic, the spokesperson nodded politely at us from afar, her expression neutral and distant, silently dispelling the rumors about her and Lucas. When Lucas's assistant approached briskly, I let go of his hand understandingly. I need to greet someone. Find a quiet spot to rest and wait for me, he said. Lucas strode away. Tall and elegant, just his silhouette felt like the kind of unattainable moonlight I could never hold on to. Sandra appeared out of nowhere and patted my shoulder. She smiled warmly. As usual, I know you're not used to these events, since Lucas and I have to socialize. Your mother and sister said they'd keep you company, and I agreed. Mother-in-law, go ahead and take care of business. I smiled politely. Not far away, the mother and sister who had haunted my nightmares were approaching. I hadn't seen them in 5 years since marrying into wealth, worlds apart from their reach. At most, they'd occasionally try to undermine me through social media, which barely affected me. But now, dressed in fine clothes, they clearly had Sandra's support. I didn't feel upset or anxious. Instead, I was surprisingly calm. Well, look at you, little sister, turning into a phoenix perched high above, Nicole said, her smile dripping with venom. Her face had grown harsher over the years. But have you heard? Rita's coming back, Lucas's childhood sweetheart. You're nothing but a placeholder, soon to be discarded. Ha! And showing up to a high-end gala in a ballet dress? Don't tell me you think you can still dance. I glanced briefly at her empty skirt hem and smirked without responding. Their faces instantly darkened. Mom lowered her voice, but it was still sharp. Zoe, you're nothing but a disgraceful ingrate who doesn't deserve love. If I were still a teenager, those words would have shattered me. But now, I couldn't care less. Ignoring Mom, I leaned down toward Nicole. Sister, you got all of Mom's love. I'm so envious. But can love make your legs grow back? Blunt and straight to the point, my words hit Nicole where it hurt the most. Her heavily made-up face twisted in rage, and she clawed at me, trying to grab my hair. Unfortunately for her, I took a step back, leaving her helpless. I raised a finger to my lips in a silent gesture. Making a scene here will get you thrown out. With that, I turned and walked away. I was sure my retreating figure resembled that of a victor. Only the growing dull pain in my stomach broke the illusion. Once out of sight, I curled up like a shrimp, just like the day I first met Lucas. Pathetic and helpless. Chapter 08. When my mood hits rock bottom, my stomach aches. My friend, Olivia, is a doctor. She once told me it's a psychosomatic reaction. We were in the same dance class. She witnessed firsthand how that mother and daughter treated me and still chose to be my friend. She's the only one. She said, Zoe, don't push yourself too hard. Call me if it gets unbearable. So, with trembling hands, I opened our chat. I typed our secret code, 111. The next second, her call came through. Zoe, where are you? I'm coming to get you. Her unconditional concern made me burst into tears. I looked around and stammered. It's the company's gala I'm at. A long, slender hand snatched the phone away. Lucas said, I'll take care of her. I'll call you when she's better. Then he hung up and carried me straight through the gala. All eyes were on us. At home, he often carried me like a princess before throwing me onto the bed. But this was the first time he did it in public. The burning heat in my cheeks dulled the ache in my stomach. For a moment, I really felt like the pampered heroine of a romance novel. See? No matter what anyone says, the CEO spoils me. I caught my sister's eyes burning with jealousy as she watched us. I narrowed my eyes, noticing how her knuckles turned white as she gripped the wheelchair's handles. Satisfaction welled up inside me. I must have saved the galaxy in my past life to deserve Lucas and this life of luxury. Mom was equally furious but didn't dare to speak up. She probably thought that if my sister could still walk, she would have stolen Lucas from me. As we passed them, my sister forced a concerned look. Sister, what happened to you? Did you get sick because you're not used to fine dining after eating plain food for so long? Mom chimed in. This ungrateful girl has no manners. I almost laughed. At the same time, I felt sad for my past self. How did I let these brainless women manipulate me for so long? I'm the wife of a CEO now, and they're implying Lucas mistreats me? Sure enough, Lucas stopped in his tracks. His sharp gaze swept over them. Security. Throw them out. And starting today, your monthly allowance of $100,000 is cancelled. If you show up in front of my wife again, be prepared to end up on the streets. Huh? That was a lot to process. But seeing their shocked and humiliated faces made me feel ecstatic. Chapter 09. By the time the family doctor arrived, looking exhausted from the trip, my stomachache had already disappeared. I scratched my head awkwardly. It comes and goes. Sorry for making you come all this way for nothing. It's fine. A quick checkup shows no major issues. You just look a bit overworked. Make sure to rest more and schedule a full checkup at the hospital when you have time. Overworked? Did he have to be that blunt? I shot Lucas a resentful look, but he calmly instructed the doctor to give the cook more recipes for therapeutic meals. After seeing the doctor off, he told the driver to head home. I quickly stopped him. I'm fine now. The gala has only been going for 20 minutes. Isn't it bad for you to leave so soon? Who can tell the CEO what to do? Well, he had a point. Having survived the worst of my psychosomatic symptoms, my head finally cleared. I cautiously asked him, have you always been giving my mom and sister an allowance? Did you arrange their house too? Yes, to keep them from bothering you. For a moment, I was speechless. For 5 years, I thought my mom and sister had stayed away because they didn't dare offend the wealthy family I married into. But the truth was, they weren't so easy to deal with. It was my cold yet reliable CEO husband who quietly handled them without my knowing. The peace and wealth I enjoyed, he had carried the burden all along. I felt touched. Unfortunately, I had no skills, no resources. The only way I could repay him was by pleasing him in certain moments. Feeling sentimental, I hugged his broad, solid frame, even hesitating about whether I should give him a child. After all, our only fight was about that. But I quickly dismissed the thought. Repaying him shouldn't come at the expense of a child's life. I'd make up for what I owed Lucas by being considerate and thoughtful, offering emotional support and a healthy body, and knowing when to step aside without being a burden. Those were probably the only ways I could repay him. In the breathless aftermath, I murmured in his ear, Lucas, I wish you eternal happiness. His back tensed for a moment, but then he held me closer and replied softly, Chapter 10. Without a source of income, my sister began harassing me day and night. Zoe, you'd better give Mom and me our allowance back, or you'll regret it. Blood is thicker than water. You won't just sit back and watch us starve, will you? Ha, don't get too comfortable. You jinx. What's happening to us now will happen to you soon enough. Her erratic behavior was honestly amusing. I hadn't blocked her or Mom before because I wanted to keep an eye on them and avoid any surprise attacks. Now, I just saw them as entertainment. Watching their antics was my new pastime. When Nicole's threats didn't work, she switched tactics, trying to mess with my emotions. She started forwarding me news and videos about Rita, Hashtag who can resist this tragic love story of the year? Hashtag. Hashtag the CEO and Rita, too perfect to handle. Hashtag. Hashtag Rita returns at the end of the month. Will this old flame reignite? Hashtag. I clicked the videos out of curiosity, but watching those clips of the perfect golden couple left me feeling uneasy. Even with Lucas by my side, I didn't feel like I matched him, and I didn't dare to imagine I could keep him forever. With 10 days left until the end of the month, when his first love would return, I figured that was also my deadline to leave. But ever since my stomach aches, Lucas had stopped traveling and started working from home. I didn't even have a chance to quietly pack away a few valuables. He kept a close eye on me, making sure I went to bed early, drank the therapeutic soups the cook prepared, and even dragged me to the gym. Whenever I showed signs of exhaustion, he'd tease, "Do you want to exercise at the gym or in the bedroom?" SOS, who else suffers from a husband with too much stamina? Even when I was sprawled out like a dead dog, Lucas looked unconvinced. "Ballet's tiring too. How are you this week? If you were going to dig into my past, at least get the details right." I practiced on and off by myself, and I haven't touched it since we got married. I wasn't surprised, just rolled my eyes helplessly. He shook his head. "I didn't investigate you. I just knew the version of you that once stood on stage." Under my stunned gaze, he silently opened his computer in the study. On the desktop, there was a folder marked with a heart icon. It was filled with videos of all my ballet performances, big and small. That's when I realized our first meeting wasn't by chance. The dance studio my dad took me to had been right next to Lucas's advanced math class. He had known me all along. Choosing to marry me wasn't a random decision. Chapter 11. I slowly began to realize that Lucas might actually like me. That idea was even more absurd than him picking me off the street to be his wife. Unable to sleep, I stared at his silhouette in the dark. I think I had feelings for him too, but I didn't dare to act on them, couldn't allow myself to. In this world, a little love wasn't enough to overcome all obstacles. He probably liked the swan that once stood under the spotlight, not the broken version of me. My mind was a tangled mess, and I didn't even remember when I drifted off. I vaguely recalled hearing Lucas on a phone call. "Fly in the flowers from their origin. If they wilt, replace them immediately. As for the decorations, I'll supervise everything on site." When I woke up, Lucas was already gone. Even without his supervision, I had gotten used to waking up early and working out over the past 2 weeks. Standing in front of the full-length mirror in the gym, I suddenly felt the urge to dance. I warmed up, stretched, and tried a few basic positions. Then I dared to spin and leap. Thud. The stiff swan collapsed heavily onto the floor. I understood then, I could never regain the proud version of myself that once was. A sharp pain tore through my lower abdomen, followed by a warm flow between my legs. The pain left me too weak to call for the housekeeper. I struggled to reach for my phone, thinking to call Lucas, but a message from my sister popped up first. The company spent a fortune booking Rose Manor. They're planning the wedding of the century. Do you think it has anything to do with you? Good luck, little sister. You'll soon be nothing but a stray dog. Don't think about coming home to freeload. We don't have a room for you anymore. The news matched Lucas's earlier phone call. Right now, in the company, only Lucas had the qualifications to host such a grand wedding. And after 5 years of marriage, all I had with him was a certificate, nothing more. His first love, Rita, was coming back, and the wedding of the century was already in motion. Don't be greedy. You always knew he wasn't yours. He was busy planning his wedding. I couldn't interrupt him. So, I opened Olivia's chat and sent 111, along with my address. I guess I wasn't that sad. The tears were just because of the pain. Chapter 12. Olivia took me to the hospital. After a series of tests, she returned with a complicated expression. I joked, "You look terrible. Don't tell me I have cancer?" "Shush. Don't say such unlucky things." Olivia covered my mouth and then said hesitantly, "You've heard about the wedding of the century the company is planning, right?" "Yeah, and I know Rita's coming back. My days as a wealthy wife are numbered." One look at her told me she understood the bride wouldn't be me. Olivia let out a long sigh. This baby really couldn't have come at a worse time. "Can you still leave quickly?" She handed me the diagnosis paper. It read, "Threatened miscarriage. Avoid strenuous activity. Bed rest required." I touched my abdomen, and my first reaction was joy. Despite taking so many birth control pills and falling without knowing I was pregnant, maybe this was a gift from above. I was about to lose Lucas, but I'd still have a small piece of him. Olivia, help me keep this baby a secret. I made my decision quickly. Olivia frowned with concern. What's your next step? Obviously, I'm running away with the baby. What else? Let them keep the father and leave the child? I immediately booked a flight for tonight and started liquidating the assets Lucas and Sandra had entrusted to me over the years. I'm not greedy, but babies are expensive. Shamelessly, I'll take a little extra for formula money. I took a taxi home, left the signed divorce papers in the bedroom, and quietly headed to the airport. Olivia wanted to see me off, but I refused, saying it wasn't good for a pregnant woman to cry. Goodbyes should be silent, whether it's friendship or hopeless love. Just before I turned off my phone on the plane, the company's official page posted teaser photos. A 1,000-acre estate filled with fresh roses, romantic crystal chandeliers lighting up the night sky, and a long red carpet stretching from the gardens to a grand chapel. Bitterness welled up, and my eyes stung. Pregnant women shouldn't let their emotions fluctuate. No more looking, muttering to myself. I turned off my phone. People should know their place. A broken swan doesn't deserve a prince. Chapter 13. The wedding of the century that had the whole city's attention turned into a mess. The CEO oversaw the decorations personally, and Rita returned as planned. But the official announcement read, "The bride has run away, and the wedding is postponed." I knew nothing about this during my long flight, and it was already noon the next day when I landed. Running away with a baby meant I had to go far enough to avoid any ugly custody battles if the truth came out. To book a place to stay, I reluctantly turned my phone back on. It buzzed nonstop for almost 30 seconds. Over a dozen missed calls and 99 plus unread messages. All the calls were from Lucas, and most of the messages were from him too. The usually concise Lucas had sent messages from last night until just moments ago. Here's a joke for you, someone's bride ran away the day before the wedding. Yeah. I'm freaking out. Where the hell are you? Zoe. Don't even think about running. No matter where you go, you can't escape me. I covered my mouth as tears streamed down my face. Damn it. If you'd told me earlier that the bride was me, none of this would have happened. Just then, my phone rang. I answered, and his tired yet elated voice came through. Zoe. Olivia already confessed. My flight lands in 20 minutes. You'd better be there waiting for me. Will you wait for me? Okay. If the person I love loves me back. Hesitating for even 1 second would be ridiculous. While waiting for Lucas at the hotel outside the airport, I scrolled through unread messages. Sandra, crying cat meme. JPG. Sandra, Lucas has been longing for his wife for over a decade. How could she run away? Sandra, I should have pressured you harder about having a baby. With a child, you'd never leave him. Me, confused black guy meme. JPG. There was also a friend request, from Rita, the so-called first love adding me? My heart sank, and my hand trembled as I hit accept. Rita, sister-in-law, I came back to attend your wedding with my brother. You can't ditch us now. Rita, I told him to confess to you ages ago, but he said he wasn't strong enough yet. Rita, he finally got the girl of his dreams, and now she's run away. Please, I'm begging you. Sister-in-law, my brother really loves you. Give him another chance. WTF? Piecing together the story from their messages, it sounded like a fairy tale. Lucas liked me, and not just recently, but for a very long time. Rita wasn't his first love, she was the head cheerleader for his pursuit of me? My head spun with questions that only Lucas could answer. But at this moment, there was no bitterness in my heart, only sweet anticipation. Chapter 14. Olivia called. Zoe. I swear I didn't mean to betray you, but Lucas completely lost it. It was like if he couldn't find you, he'd make the whole world dig to the center of the earth. Her description was so vivid that I burst out laughing. Looks like we all guessed wrong. Turns out I'm the bride. The company's official account already posted the wedding invitation, Zoe Lucas. What's left to guess? Olivia sounded relieved. You two were clearly meant to be. I didn't dare bring up how much you loved and depended on him before, in case you couldn't handle losing him, but now I know he loves you too. I'm so happy for you, Zoe. I didn't say anything about the baby. That's your news to share. After hanging up, my heart was a whirlwind of emotions. Were my feelings for him really that obvious? A mutual love. It feels like I finally have my fairy tale romance. As for the messages from my mom and sister, I didn't even bother reading them. They were either insults or jealous comments, hoping to see me fail. I just wanted to see him soon, to tell him we were having a baby, to hold him and never let go. I stopped by a gift shop and bought a big ribbon. I tied it loosely around my waist, imagining the moment I saw him. I planned to proudly stick out my stomach and say, "Here, this is your gift." With those sweet fantasies in mind, I drifted off to sleep. Then, I woke up to soft, familiar kisses. Lucas's face was only an inch away from mine. His eyes were red, and he hugged me tightly, his voice hoarse. "I'm never letting you leave me again." "Well, you can't. I don't want to fight a custody battle with you." I placed the ribbon over my stomach. "Look, it's our love's gift. You're pregnant?" Lucas looked completely shocked. When I nodded, he dropped several reverent kisses on my stomach. He murmured softly to himself, "Good, good, baby. You arrived at the perfect time. Now your mom will never leave me." Chapter 15. From Lucas. I finally learned the full story. The ballerina he saw as a teenager became the light of his life. He hadn't always been so confident, with an absent father who had cheated and left. Lucas took his mother's surname. He grew up with wealth and privilege, but also the immense pressure of being the heir to a billion-dollar corporation. Every word and action was scrutinized by his family. He saw me in my brightest moments, dancing on stage, but also witnessed my most broken ones, bullied by my mother and sister. Yet, trapped in the back seat of a luxury car, he couldn't protect the girl he loved. So, once he successfully took over the company, he raced to find the love he'd lost. Straight out of a romance novel. I said, "Are you sure? I can't dance anymore. My only talent now is eating and lazing around." Lucas held me tightly, his eyes locked on mine. "If I wanted someone who could dance, that'd be easy to find. I only want you. Love and affection are never without reason." He said he loved my resilience, my compromises, and every part of who I was. And so, a week later, the wedding of the century finally took place. Only close friends and family attended. All uninvited guests were kept outside, including my mother and sister. Nicole screamed hysterically, "Let me in! She's my sister, why can't I be at her wedding?" Mom cried dramatically, "Zoe, I was wrong before, but now that you're living well, you can't just abandon us." Her tears might have looked real if not for the calculation in her eyes. But no, I'd never forgive them. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't have lost my dad or given up on ballet. Thankfully, life has more than one path. Though my body is no longer fit for ballet, my strong foundation allows me to teach. Passing my dream on to the next generation is its own kind of fulfillment. As the pure white wedding car passed them, I tossed out a card. "The minimum alimony will be deposited on time each month. If you're not satisfied, sue me, my lawyer is ready. And don't show your faces again, or I'll make your lives hell." The two of them trembled with rage but cowered under Lucas's dangerous glare. In the end, they picked up the card and left with their tails between their legs. Since we were legally married now, I figured it was fine to act a little high and mighty, right? Chapter 16. In the vast Rose Manor, down the long red carpet, he walked step by step toward me. The sparkling crystal chandeliers couldn't compare to the light in his eyes. Sandra, rarely seen shedding tears, took Lucas's hand and placed it in mine. "Zoe, from now on, I'm your mom too. If Lucas ever treats you poorly, don't even think about running, just come to me, and I'll take care of him." Rita, holding hands with her foreign girlfriend, beamed brightly. "The couple I've been rooting for is finally together." Olivia, acting like a proud mother, kept nodding approvingly. "Zoe, you have to stay happy forever, surrounded by love and happiness." I thought I saw my father's figure. He waved at me and pointed to a shining star in the sky. "The past may be dark and untouchable, but the road ahead is bright and full of